What do you have to tell us today, young man? Dead men really do tell tales. You just have to know how to listen. You, my poor friend, were never really given a chance, were you? I suspect your killer planned it that way. By the strength evident even in your death, I too would not have wanted to give someone of your clear physical prowess a chance to fight back. The victim has telltale signs of early-stage thyroid cancer, most likely caused by repeated exposure to radioactive material. It wasn't the cause of death, and I suspect the poor man didn't even know he had it. But whatever the commander was doing in his mysterious past, it most certainly had something to do with radioactive isotopes. But despite the evidence, it was not the blow to the head that killed the poor man. His ultimate demise was cardiac arrest. This particular choice in body art is not something I have come across before. Of course, many sailors have some sort of tattoo on their bodies, and this one has elements that remind one of many other US naval-inspired self-branding marks. But it is entirely unique, at least to my eyes. Our captain obviously suffered massive head trauma. There are bruises and telltale wounds on his skull that suggest he was bludgeoned by a heavy object. The suspicious needle entrance on the man's back makes me think there is something we're missing. I'm going to send a sample of his blood to Abby for testing. The cancer we found is consistent with what you've told me about his mission history. But cardiac arrest, especially for a man of the captain's relatively young age and high level of fitness, is quite unusual. I've sent samples of his blood to Abby for testing.
Keep up the good work, Duck.
The substance in Husker's blood is succinylcholine. In small doses, it is used to induce muscle relaxation. In larger doses, it can be lethal. It's Abby. I just finished the tests on Captain Husker's blood. I found high levels of a toxin known as succinylcholine. In much smaller doses, it's used as a muscle relaxer, commonly used to induce paralysis for tracheal surgery.
All right, let's do another deduction board.
Let's see what we can find.
Why don't you explain it to me, Abs? That's supposed to make sense, Abs?
Just what I thought. Husker's cause of death was definitely poison, not blunt force trauma or cardiac arrest. This was premeditated, cold-blooded murder.
Now we just need to know why.
I'm way ahead of you, working on the evidence you sent me now. Gotcha, you little bugger. The fingerprints on these instruments belong to Captain Husker. Captain Husker was into something more than a little bondage. He was into full-on torture. The substance in this vial is sodium pentothal, truth serum. Fingerprints can tell a lot of stories. These are going to tell us who our killer is. Why would Dr. Marks be at the torture facility? The substance in this vial is succinylcholine, a highly toxic poison. Why does it not surprise me to find traces of a rare poison twice in one day? Gibbs, I found the same rare poison that killed Captain Husker in one of the vials from the torture facility. Those two are a long way apart. How did it get to both places?
Deduction board.
Let's see what we can find.
Why don't you explain it to me, Abs?
Found what we were looking for. So now it's clear. Husker was torturing people for information, and Dr. Marks was somehow involved. Then something went wrong between the two of them, and she poisoned him. Worried she'd get caught, she tried to frame the acting CO, Commander Pramus.
She's probably long gone by now. McGee, need to find the doctor.
I'm already on it.
McGee? How long have you been on the line?
I'm always on the line.
Target is proceeding on course. Target on...
I've never missed before, and I don't plan to start now. I hope you've enjoyed your joyride.
Heading 09er, Bravo 9er. Assistance requested. Course correction required. Target on course to be intercepted. Copy that. Target is outbound.
We're right on top of you now, and in just a few seconds, game over.
Target is proceeding on course. Copy that. Target is outbound. We have a visual. Target is escaping. Target acquisition in jeopardy. Copy that. Target is outbound. We have a visual. Course correction required. Target is escaping. Course correction required. Target on course to be intercepted. Copy that. Target is outbound. We have a visual. Target headed east. Heading 09er, Bravo 9er. Target on course to be intercepted. Target is proceeding on course. Base, this is Delta Echo 7. Target is proceeding on course.
We got her, boss. The base guards are bringing her to you.
Got it.
Welcome back, Doctor.
I'm not telling you anything.
We know what you were doing out there, in that blood-stained concrete torture box.
You don't know anything.
As doctors, we took an oath to protect human life and limit suffering. I understand that sometimes those two goals conflict with each other.
You have no idea what you're talking about. This is a war zone, Dr. Mallard, not some comfortable morgue in Washington, D.C. Things work differently here.
I have spent more than my fair share of time in a war zone, Dr. Marks, and I once watched a man tortured to the brink of death repeatedly. It was my job to keep him alive so that his tormentor could extend his suffering. I refused and instead ended his suffering and his life. Much as I suspect you did for the victims out at that dreadful facility.
You have your facts wrong.
Why don't you correct me then?
I am a doctor. I save lives and end suffering. End of story.
You were torturing people at that warehouse.
No, never.
That's not good enough.
I would never intentionally inflict suffering on another human being. I'm not a torturer, Agent Gibbs.
Welcome back, Doctor.
I'm not telling you anything.
We know what you were doing out there, in that blood-stained concrete torture box.
You don't know anything.
As doctors, we took an oath to protect human life and limit suffering. I understand that sometimes those two goals conflict with each other.
You have no idea what you're talking about. This is a war zone, Dr. Mallard, not some comfortable morgue in Washington, D.C. Things work differently here.
I have spent more than my fair share of time in a war zone, Dr. Marks, and I once watched a man tortured to the brink of death repeatedly. It was my job to keep him alive so that his tormentor could extend his suffering. I refused and instead ended his suffering and his life. Much as I suspect you did for the victims out at that dreadful facility.
You have your facts wrong.
Why don't you correct me then?
I am a doctor. I save lives and end suffering. End of story.
You were torturing people at that warehouse.
No, never.
That's not good enough.
I would never intentionally inflict suffering on another human being. I'm not a torturer, Agent Gibbs.
Saw the inside of your warehouse. We know what you and Husker were doing out there.
He ordered me. He made me inject them with sodium pentothal so they wouldn't resist his questions. Then he ordered me to nurse them back to health, just as Dr. Mallard described from his own experiences. He wanted to extend their pain. But I never tortured anyone. It was always Captain Husker. I did as I was ordered. I eased their pain, reduced their suffering as best I could.
Who were these people?
Iraqi civilians, mostly.
Need something more specific.
They were all Iraqi civilians. People he picked up off the street who he suspected as having ties to terrorists.
So you killed them.
I tried to help them.
Help them?
I didn't kill them. I did as I was ordered. I eased their pain, reduced their suffering as best I could.
We also found the succinylcholine.
No, it's not something... He was inflicting terrible, unspeakable things. I couldn't let him keep doing that. Not to anyone. So I injected the succinylcholine instead of the sodium pentothal.
But he found out.
Yeah, he did.
So you killed him, too?
Yes, he found out, but no, I didn't kill him.
Your autopsy proved that the commander was killed by a lethal injection of succinylcholine. You injected him. And as he was dying, you hit him over the head to finish him off.
It wasn't like that. When he found out, he threatened me. Asked me if I wanted to trade places with one of the victims. I was scared. He came at me. I already had a syringe, so I injected him, but he was strong. He fought back.
What's the matter, Tony?
Caffeine crash. I don't know how the Gibbs man does it, but if coffee is his secret weapon, count me out. I mean, I like coffee as much as the next guy, but Gibbs is inhuman.
How much did you lose by?
It doesn't matter how many more he drank than me, okay?
A lot. A whole lot.
Like you're one to talk. You don't even drink real coffee, just that little soft drink. I'd like to see you try to switch to a real man's brew. Then we'll see who's laughing.
You know, Tony, there's actually more caffeine in Caf-Pow per ounce than in your typical cup of coffee. In fact, even with the latest coffee brewing technology, there is no way, either physical or chemical, to squeeze that much caffeine out of a coffee bean.
You'd have to artificially add caffeine to reach the same levels, and that's not even counting the ginseng, vitamin B, and other stimulants in Caf-Pow.
Very nice, McGee.
So what are you saying?
They're saying you're the only one who can't hang with the boss.